はい。いきたいと思います。ちょっと聞いてみて思ったんですけど、ちょっとかなり読むスピードが遅いので、もうちょっとスピードをアップしたいと思います。ここはもう気をつけながらいきたいと思います。Volume 1 Chapter 1 Could this be another world? The Volume 1 Chapter 1 Could this be another world? Part 1 When I woke up, the first thing I felt was my eyes being dazzled. Light, light filled my vision, and I narrowed my eyes. Discomfort. Once my eye adjusted to brightness, I found a young blonde woman gazing at me. A beautiful girl, no, a beautiful woman would be more ap- appropriate. Who is it? Beside her was a man of a similar young age with brown hair, giving me a stiff smell. stiff smell. A strong and arrogant looking man. His muscles were amazing. Brown hair, arrogant type. Looking at his DQ and appearance, I should have been depressed, repulsed. Strangely enough, though, I did not feel he was unpleasant. His hair was a pretty brown color, probably because it wasn't dyed. I guess. The woman cracked a smile as she watched me and said something. What is she saying? Feeling fuzzy. Feeling fuzzy. I could not hear clearly and didn't understand it at all. Could it be that it's not Japanese? The man replied with a gentle expression. Really, what did he just say? I couldn't understand it at all. A third person's voice came from somewhere. I couldn't see them. I tried to sit up and ask them, where is this place and who are you guys? Even if I was a hikikomori, I still wasn't a complete failure at communication. I could still do something like this. But I couldn't tell if what if what came from my lips was a groan or just heavy breathing. My body, my body couldn't move. I felt sensations in my fingers and wrist, but I couldn't move my upper body. The end, the man carried me up. It's a joke, right? My body weight over 100 kilograms, and he lifted it up. No, maybe I had been in com- a coma for dozens of the day. It caused my body weight to go down. It was such a huge incident. There was a large possibility that I lost an arm or a leg. A fate worse than death. Haha. On that day, those were my thoughts. Part 2. A mouse passed by. I, a mouse passed by. It I was looked like I was reincarnated. Reincarnated. I, fi- I finally realized that fact. I had become a baby. I confirmed I confirmed it when I was carried up with my head supported and my own body appeared my sight. I didn't know why I still had my past memories, but there was nothing bad about detaining them, detaining them, detaining memory upon the the incarnation. Anyone would have entertained such delu- delusions, such delusions at least once. But I didn't think that such a delusion would become reality. The first couple I had seen when I opened my eyes seemed to be my parents. They were probably in the early half of their second 20s, early half of their second 20s. Clearly, they were younger than me in my past life. From the perspective of a 34-year-old, it was alright to call them young. It really made me envious that they had children at that age. It really made me envious that they had children at the age. I already noticed it from the start, but I didn't seem to be in Japan. The language was different. My parents' face didn't appear to be Japanese, and their clothes, their clothes even seemed to be that of native village. I couldn't see anything remembering, resembling, resembling electronic device. The person who wore a maid's apron was cleaning with the clothes, and the utensil, the utensil, bowls, and furniture were uh, coarsely made from wood. It was probably not an advanced developed country. The light was the light was not produced from light bulbs, but from candles and lamps. Of course, there was a probability of them being very poor and unable to afford the electricity bills. Maybe that probability was very high. I thought they surely had some money, as there was someone dressed like a maid. But it wouldn't be strange if it was a sister of one of my parents. It would be a normal thing for her to be cleaning. I certainly wanted to afresh, start afresh. But living in a family that could not even afford to pay the bill made me very restless. Part 3. Half a year passed by. Half a year passed by. Listening to my parents' conversation during this last half year, I had started to understand things bit a bit. My English grades couldn't have been considered good, but it seems true that learning it can be quite a slow thing when heavily influenced by a native language. Or could it be that this boy's mind was pretty good? Maybe it was become of my young age, but I could remember things. By this time, I was able to crawl. Being able to move is a wonderful thing. I had never felt such gratefulness for being able to move. He'll run somewhere. Uh, he'll, he'll run somewhere else when I move my eyes away from him. Isn't it good that he's active? I was so worried. I was so worried when he didn't cry at all when he was born. Even now, he doesn't cry. He doesn't cry. My parents had this discussion when they saw me crawling everywhere. Crawling, crawling everywhere, everywhere. I was not at an age when when I'd when I'd cry loudly when hungry after all. But even if I try to hold it in, the stuff that comes from bro would still leak out. So I just left things alone as they were. Alone as they were. Even though I could only crawl, once I did so, I understood a lot of things. First of all, this family was relatively well off. The building was two-story wooden house, and there were over 5 rooms. They had one there was one hired maid. At first, I thought the maid was my aunt or something, but her respectful attitude towards my parents made it seem wasn't family. The place was a village. The place was a village. From the scenery I could see from the windows, it was in a tranquil, tranquil landscape, tranquil landscape of farming plots. The other houses were scattered around, and on one side of the wheat fields, I could see 3 families. I was quite a rural place. I could see any electronic wires, lamps, or anything similar. Perhaps there wasn't a generator nearby. I had heard that foreign countries place their wires underground, but if that was the case, it was strange that this house did not have electricity. Electricity. It was too rural. It was painful for me who had been just jostled by the wave of civilization. Civilization. Even if it was the incarnation, even if it was reincarnation, I still want to have a personal computer. That way of thinking ended on a certain afternoon. Nothing to do. I climbed up on the chair as usual, intended to admire the field's scenery. When I took out when I looked out the window, I was shocked. Father was waving around a sword in the courtyard. What, huh? What is he doing? My dad is still things, waving waving that thing at his age. Still a crap. Due to the shock, I fell down from the chair. My underdeveloped hand grabbed the chair, but they were unable to support my body, and the fever back of my head hit the ground first. Yeah! I heard a scream just as I hit the floor. My mother spotted me. My mother spotted me and dropped the laundry. Washed laundry. Her hand over her mouth. looking over me with a deathly pale face. See, are you okay? My mother rushed over to me in a panic and carried me up. She looked me in the eyes and placed her hand on her chest, looking relieved. You seem fine. Madam, it's better it's better not to move someone after their heart after they had just received a blow. Receive a blow. Better not move someone after they had just received a あんねあ変な。I remembered her in my heart. From her anxious attitude, it seemed it seemed I had fallen in quite a dangerous manner. It seemed possible that I might become an idiot due to knock due to the knock on my head. Not that that would be any different. There was a throbbing pain. There was a throbbing pain on the back of my head. At least, grumbling the chair with my hand had lowered my velocity. Grumbling the chair with my hand had lowered my velocity. At my mother's reaction didn't seem panicky. I assumed there wasn't any blood. It was probably just a swelling. My mother took a careful look at my head. Her expression seemed to say, if there's an injury, it'll be serious. Finally, she pressed her hand on my head. To be safe, let the power of God be covered into the bounf- bountiful crop, and bestowed unto bestowed unto those who had lost the strength to healing, stand once more healing. I nearly burst out. Nearly burst out. Hey, hey, is this country's? Hey, this this country's pain go away quick? Or was it that along with my sword wheedling wheedling further, sword wheedling further, along with sword wiggling further, my mother was also a 중이병, a 중이병, also a 중이병, a warrior and Hellenic, Hellenic, Hellenic weddings. Just when I was thinking that, my mother's hand emitted a dim light, and in an instant, my pain disappeared. See, it's okay now. After all, your mom was a renowned adventurer, my mother said in a boastful manner. I was instantly plugged into confusion. Sword warrior adventure healing, hunting, critic, athletic? All these terms echoed in my head. What was just what was that just now? What was that just now? What did she do? What did she just do? What's wrong? My father looked in the window from outside when he heard my mother's scream. His whole body was sweaty as he had just been swinging his sword. Listen to me, dear. Judy actually climbing on the top of the chair and nearly got gravely injured. Nearly got gravely injured. Well, it's not good if a boy isn't active. A slightly worried, a slightly worried mother and a father who didn't treat it like a big deal and placed her, placated, placated her. This is a commonly seen event. A commonly seen event. But my mother didn't back off. Perhaps because of the back of my head hitting the ground first. Just a moment, dear. This child isn't even a year. Would you worry a little more? Why that? A children is meant to grow up falling down to become study. Become study. This way he will become healthy. Besides, even if he's good, can't you just treat him? But I'm really worried. I keep I keep thinking of him getting heavily injured and me being unable to treat him. He'll be fine. My dad said that and raised her tightly. Her tightly. My mom's face turned red. I was worried when he didn't cry at all in the beginning. But if he's so not naughty, he will sure be fine. My dad kissed my mom. Hey, you're showing this to me on purpose, right? Purpose, purpose, right? Both of you. Later on, two of them put me in the next trip, moved on to the second floor, and started in on the task of making me siblings. Even if the two of you go to the second floor, I can still hear the nyan nyan noises than successful offline people. But magic. Later on, I started paying attention to conversation between my parents and the maid. And then I heard a lot of terms not in my vocabulary, especially the names of countries, districts, and various other locations. Some proper nouns I had never heard before. Maybe this place is. No, I was consulting of it. I was consulting of. This wasn't ours, but some other word. A different word that has soul and magic in it. At this moment, I had a flash of inspiration. If it's this word, perhaps even I can achieve it. If it's word of soul and magic, a word debated, ated, a word deviated from my previous life, and what I know as common sense, perhaps I can do it. to live like a normal person, to work hard like a normal person, to be able to climb back up if I fell down, to live my life free. I had been full of regret when I died in my previous life, dying full of burning restlessness, restlessness over my potence, over my impotence, and the fact that I had accomplished nothing. But the me who experienced all that, having retained, having retained the knowledge and experience of my previous life, perhaps I could really do it. To live on seriously, from a hikomori point of view. If you read any errors, broken links, non-starter content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as. Okay, now, 30 minutes. Yeah, I'll continue. Next chapter. The volume 1, chapter 2. Expressionless mate. Lydia was once a girl's maid for Osra's concubines. A girl's maid. A girl's maid, a maid who is also a guard. Guard maids will usually do a maid's job, but if anything happens, they will take up a sword to protect their master. Lydia faithfully accomplished her duty. Faithfully accomplished her duty. As far as her work as a maid is concerned, there were no complaints. But as a sword fighter, her ability is average, a dime a dozen. And thus, she got careless in the battle. She got careless in a battle against an assassin who targeted the newly born princess, and she got injured in the leg by enemy's danger. Enemy's dagger. Enemy's dagger. The dagger was coated with poison that was specifically meant to kill loyalty. There was no toxic toxification, toxic, toxification, or healing magic that was capable of treating such a calamitous poison. And the wound was immediately treated, and she survived thanks to a doctor trying a variety of methods to cure her, but there were side effects that injured. There was no problem caused to her everyday life, but she could never run or stomp again. The kingdom then sacked her without hesitation. It wasn't uncommon occurrence. Ilya accept the, accepted this fate herself. Even though she wasn't given compensation money, she considered it fortunate that she wasn't secretly silenced, because she served the inner palace. Lydia then left the capital. The mastermind, the mastermind behind the assassination attempt wasn't found. Mastermind, mastermind behind the assassination attempt wasn't found. Having understood the rule of concubine's staff, he knew there was a possibility might become the next target. Perhaps the palace let Lydia wander to leave to lure out the mastermind. She always wondered why she, who had no significant background, had been accepted in the inner palace. It was now that she finally understood. They simply want to hide maids could be used and guarded. Not these, however, she had to leave the capital as quickly as possible for her own safety. Even though the kingdom treated her as bite, she had no obligation to stay, as she was not ordered to in any way. Obligation. And she had no sense of duty. Lydia fleetly is the stage coaches, which is stages coaches, while traveling and arrived at the Fedora region, which has extensive agricultural lands and was located at the border. It was a relaxing place of vast wheat fields, with the exception of the fortress city Loa, where Buddha lived. Lydia intended to find work there, but as her leg was injured, she was unable to find a job that required physical strength. She could resort to teaching swordsmanship, but it was swordmanship. She was the best for her to be hired as a maid because the salary was higher. At this border, there were many who could wield a sword, and and many who could teach swordsmanship got made slowly, slowly burst, slowly burst domestic affair is domestic affair. The maid in the domestic affair was relatively rare. Domestic affairs, domestic affairs. Since the supply, since the supply was so little, the salary would be bigger. However, it would be dangerous for her to be hired by the ruler of Fedra or any high-class nobility of their status. Such people would surely have relations with the king. If they knew she was a maid who once worked for the concubine's palace, there was a possibility that she would be treated as a political tool. And for the reason, Lydia stayed far away. She didn't want to experience a near-death situation again, even though it was a little unfair to the princess. Lydia hoped to stay far away from the royals' contention for power. Royals' contention for power. But if her salary was too low, then there wouldn't be enough money to send to her family. Trying, trying to find a safe job and a guaranteed salary sure wasn't easy. Sure wasn't easy. Cut to. After running around there, after running around everywhere for near a month, Lydia came across a recruitment note. A lower class knight from Burina, Burina village, located in Federal region, was looking to hire a maid. At the top of that, the note said give special priority to someone with experience in taking care of children or who had knowledge of midwifery. Buina was a tiny village on the edge of Fedra, a village among villages, an extremely rural village. It was very inconvenient, but this was the place that she thought. The employer, being a lower class knight, was also unexpectedly fine find. And most importantly, he recognized that prospective employer's name. He was Lydia's protege. A novel prof- profligate. A novel's profligate who one day suddenly barged into the dojo where Lydia was learning swordsmanship. According to him, he had left home after the quarrel with his father and had come to the dojo to learn swordsmanship, albeit a different style, to did study swordsmanship at home and soon after surpassed Lydia. Lydia was not amused by this fact, but she had since understood that she had no talent and gave up. Paul, who was utterly brimming with talent, was later banished from the dojo after making a mistake. He only left Lydia a single sentence: "I'm becoming an adventure, a man like a tempest." Man like a tempest. It was 7 years since they went their separate ways. At that time, he had actually become a knight and gotten married, though he didn't know what sort of hard, hurdles, uh, don't know what sort of hurdles he had experienced in life, or wasn't a bad guy as far as Tia could remember. If she told him about her problem, he was sure that he would help her. If that didn't work out, then she would just mention some past events. There were a few things she could use to negotiate. Having completed all these factors, she headed to Vienna. Paul employed Lydia without any fuss. It seemed It seemed he was really anxious as his wife, Denith, was about to give birth. Lydia had been taught extensively in midwifery for the princess's birth. More, Moreover, she was someone that Paul was acquainted with, and he knew her background. Lydia was received with a warm welcome. Her salary was also more than what she had expected, so her wish was achieved. Part 3. The children was born. There any labor weren't any labor issue or anything. It went just as she was trained for in the inner palace. There were no problems at all. It was very successful. However, the children didn't cry when he was born. Lilia broke into a cold sweat. The baby drew out amniotic amniotic fluids immediately after he was born, but he merely lifted his head up without any emotion and made no sound. The expressionless face was reminiscent, reminiscent of reminiscent of a stillborn child. Child. Lydia, Lydia Lydia touched the baby. He had a heartbeat. He was breathing too, but he just wasn't crying. Lydia remembered the words of the senior girl's maid, that babies who don't cry at birth surely have complications. Has complications. The instant when she thought of this, Ah, ah. The baby looked over to her and mumbled something in his groggy, groggy. Lydia relaxed after hearing that. Even though there was no evidence for it, she felt that there would be no problems. Part 4. The children's name was Tudeus. He was an uncanny, uncanny child. He's an uncanny child, never crying or fussing. At first, she assumed his boy was slightly weaker and that taking care of him wouldn't require much effort. But such a notion only occurs at the beginning. After Ludes learned how to crawl, he started to move everywhere in the house. Everywhere in the house, kitchen, back door, storage, cleaning equipment place, fireplace. He even climbed onto the second story, though one couldn't imagine how he did so. Either way, he would disappear whenever nobody kept an eye on him, but he would always be found somewhere in the house. Julius never left the house. He would occasionally look outside of the window, but it seemed that he was still scared to go outdoors. Lydia was instinctively Lydia was instinctively afraid of his baby, afraid of this baby. And one had to wonder, one had to, when it began. It was probably, it was probably the moments when she found him after his disappearance. Most of the time, Lourdes would be smiling. Sometimes he'd be looking at the vegetables, starting as the flickering candle flames, or just looking at panties that were yet to be washed. Lourdes mumbled, mumbled sounds, showed a smile that made people feel simply disgusted. It was a smile that naturally disgusted people. When Lydia was working in the inner palace, she had to go to the main palace for her mission, and the higher ranked official nobles that she met there had similar smiles. There were Bard. There were Bard had flaggy berries, flaggy berries, and were leering at her when they started at her wrist. Very similar to a boy that was born long ago. It was ex- exceptionally was ex- exceptionally scary when she had to carry Rude, had to carry his nost his nostrils his nostrils would flare, would flare. The corners of his mouth would rise, and his breathing hastens as buried his face into her chest. And then he would make strange noises and oh, seemingly laughing as he made the sounds. At that instant, Lydia's whole body was dominated by the shivering, terrible shivering cold, shivering cold, shivering, terrible shivering cold. And she has the urge to throw the baby, and smash him to the ground. This baby was not cute in any way. That smile caused fear in others. It was the same smile. It was the same smile the high-ranked officers had when they brought many young female slaves. He was supposed to be a baby who was just being born. Lydia felt un- unbearable discomfort. Unbearable discomfort, and even experienced feelings of peril when she thought things over. This baby was very strange. Could there be that there was something but possessing it? Here, could there be, there was something but possessing it. Oh, perhaps it was something similar, like a cause, like a cause. When she went to the item shop and spent a pitiful amount of money that she had to buy some necessary things. When the when the gray rats went to sleep, she did her home's ritual to chase chase evil away. It was uh, her home's ritual to chase evil away. Of course, it was kept from Paul and his family. The second day, after carrying Lourdes again, Lydia understood it was useless, and he was still as disgusting as before. It was it was eerie, eerie that a baby would show such an expression. Dennis said, "When feeding this baby milk, he will lick, will lick." This had become just outraged, outrageous. Has become just outrageous. Or had no restoration, restraint. He had no. When it came, when it came to women, but never did he come disgusting to this extent. Never did he become disgusting, or had no restraint when it came to. This was too strange to be dismissed as here. Uh, hereditary. Hereditary. Lydia remembered again. She remembered again. She had heard of a story the palace. In the past, Osran prince was possessed by the demon. To retrieve that demon, he would crawl around on hymns every night. Yes, every night. And when unsuspected mate hugged him, the prince stabbed her with a knife hidden behind him, killing her. Too scary. Stab. Scary. Video something like that. There is no doubt. That kind of devil. He's still obedient now. Still obedient for now. One day, he'll awaken, and when everyone is asleep, one by one, he'll. Oh, it's too early to decide this. I shouldn't have taken this job. I'd get attacked sooner or later. Lydia was a person who seriously believed in such as superstition. 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 During the first year of her work, she was still afraid of him, but she didn't notice when Lude's unpredictable movements started to change. He didn't disappear as and when he wanted to, and usually stayed in Paul's study, the second floor. Speaking of the study, it was just a room with a few books. It was just a room. Study. It was just a few. Students stayed there without leaving. Lydia secretly observed him and found him mumbling to himself while reading a book. It was a meaningless mumble, or was supposed to be this, for it wasn't a commonly used language in the central countries. It was still too early for him to be learning how to talk. Of course, he had yet to be taught alphabets. He had yet to he had yet to alphabet. It was just alphabet alphabets. It was just an infant looking at the book and making random sounds. Or else it would be just too strange. Lydia always had the feelings that that those sounds carried meaning and structure. Lydia seems to understand the contents of the book. It was too frightening, 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 frightening. Frightening. Lydia always thought that when she observed Lourdes from the gap in the door jam. However, she never felt disgust with him for some explicable reason. Come to think of it, that unknown resource of comfort gradually disappeared from the moment he confined himself to that room. But he occasionally showed his disgusting smile while she carried him. It didn't feel unpleasant. Though he occasionally showed his disgusting smile while he carried him, it didn't feel unpleasant. He wouldn't worry, worry, worry. Wouldn't bury his face into her chest, and he wouldn't suddenly pant. Why had she always found him scary? Recently, he began to feel that he was sincere and hardworking, and didn't want to disrupt him. Dennis seems to sentiments. Share her sentiments. I was an idea that went against common sense. In fact, it was abnormal for human beings not to care for children, not to care for a children that was born long ago. But recently, there were signs of knowledge in Rude's eyes. He showed only chicken eyes. He showed only chicken eyes a few months back, but at this point, there was a strong will and dazzling knowledge in them. What should she do? Even though she had knowledge of taking care of children, the inexperience, uh, the inexperienced Lydia found it hard to calm. She couldn't remember whether it was uh, guard, guardian maid senpai or her mother back in her hometown who said this, that there was no one correct, correct way to bring up child. At the very least, he no longer felt disgusted, uncomfortable, and fri- frightened. Frightened. So she decided it was the best not to disturb him and let him revert back to how he was originally. Let's just leave him as he is. Did finally if you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon. Okay, the end. すごい、あ、わからん英語増えましたけど、これを一気になんか、比較できる